Alright, my friends, so in today's episode, we will round off this course, not the bonus content, but this course as the main course, by finishing the double fruit stat system. So by creating and finishing it, and then connecting it to the tool, and then, just finishing everything overall. So, yeah. Okay, you might ask, why do we need a stat system in the first place? As you guys know from the first episodes, this part right here is missing. So we need to tell our stat system that the devil fruit we've just ate is now our fruit, guys. And how can we do that? Of course, we need a stat system. How do you create a stat system? Well, yeah, that's topic for today's episode right here. The first thing which you want to do is that you want to go to game settings and then check security and make sure to enable studio access to API services. This allows us to use the data store and test it out within our Roblox Studio session right here. Otherwise, we would be forced to play our Roblox game over and over again just to test out the data store, and that would just cost a lot of time. But yeah. So, move on by creating a script inside of your server script server. So we want to keep the data store server-sided, guys. And yeah. So, in my previous data store tutorials on YouTube, I have used physical instances. Not physical. I've used instances, alright, such as an int value, number value, string value, to display each stat and each value within it. But in this case right here, I want to use non-instance stats. And you guys might ask, okay, so how is it gonna happen? How are you gonna do things? And you're about to see how this is going to work out. So the first thing which you want to do is that we want to define some variables. The first one is called ds, and ds stands for data store, and we would like to refer to the data store service. As you can see, game get service, data store service. So this allows us to work with the data store. Okay, now that's actually it with the variables. We might add some more later, but yeah. So the next step is to refer to this players tab, and then so we want to make use of an event called player edit. As you can see, fires when a player enters the game. That is literally what we want to do. So when a player enters the game, then we want to create a stat system. So collection of stats for that player, and that is going to happen when the player joins. And you guys can probably tell what happens when the player leaves. So game players player removing, of course. Then we would like to save everything. And yeah. So how do we get to know which player has just joined within these events? That is pretty easy. As you can see up here, connects the given function to the event and returns an, yeah, just forget about that, but it says function player player. Okay, this means that there's an argument passed automatically, which is the player who has just joined. Okay, so PLR is the player who has joined, and in this case right here, so within this event, PLR is the player who is leaving. Now let me just quickly demonstrate to you how a data store works. That is pretty easy to do. So, but actually, before we do that, let's actually move on with the next stuff. You guys will understand how a data system works later on this tutorial. Don't worry. So we're gonna define some functions right here: save, function, change, and they're gonna receive some more arguments inside of those brackets. No worry. I just have to think how we can approach things right here. Yeah. Data templates. Let's do this. Yeah. There we go. So we have to find one more variable up here, which holds a table. And the name already tells you what it is about. This thing is called data template. And this is the templates of each player, so of each player who has just joined the game for the first time and therefore has no progress in its stats whatsoever. So this is your default data. In this case, this table only holds one value, one stat, which is Delfrid. Okay, we could decide to add some more. So maybe money, 0, bounty, 100. You know, we could add stuff like that, and we are gonna do that because to, you know, just for testing purposes. But our focus is gonna be on this one right here. Yeah, so let's move on by scripting this part right here. So what happens when the player is added? So what happens is that let's actually create one more variable called data, and this one is going to be empty. And what happens is that retrieve data is nil. So we are defining a variable right here, which is nil at the beginning. And this variable stands for retrieve data. So what happens when a player joins is that the player's data loads. Okay, now we have two cases, two possible outcomes when the player's data is going to load. The first outcome is that the player has data and the data loads successfully. The second one is that the player has no data and therefore there is nothing to load. And there is actually one more, but the third and the second are pretty similar. The third one would be that the player has data, but the data is unable to be loaded for any reason, okay? And therefore, the player ends up with having no data to load. And that's the reason why it is similar to the second option, right? To the second outcome. And yeah. So, the next thing which we want to do is that we want to load the data of the player. How can we do that? We are going to define a p call right here. So I'm going to be explaining this, don't worry. So what is a p call? This p call right here ensures that everything which is now going to follow within these two lines. So once anything inside of here throws out an error, it is not going to break the whole script right away, but we can catch this error and we can see what the error is. So if error m, then print error m. So you see two variables right here, success and error m. Success is true once everything inside of here, okay? So it is currently empty, I know, but we will add some code inside of here. So once everything inside of here was executed correctly without any errors, you know, without any interruptions whatsoever, then success is going to be true, error m is going to be nil. Error m stands for error message. And if we encounter any error while doing all of the code inside of here, then success is gonna be false and error m is gonna be the error message. All right, and we only want to look out for the case whether there is an error message, and if there is one, then we want to print out the error message right here. Okay, so why are we using a p call right here? Why don't we just continue normally? Now the thing is, well, first of all, data stores have a lot of potential to run into errors, especially while loading and saving. That's the reason why we wrap the loading process and not really the saving process, because the loading process is far more dangerous in that context. But that's the reason why we wrap up the loading process inside of this p call right here, just to prevent the data store from breaking completely once it runs into an error. Because once it runs into an error, the whole script's gonna pause and other people's data is gonna be messed up. You know, you're not able to really refer to them, change them, save them whatsoever, and then goodbye. Yeah. So how do we retrieve the data now? It's actually pretty easy. What you want to do is that you want to check for something, and you want to check if ds get async. Oh wait, I've completely forgot something. Look, let's call this DSS, data store service, and I'm gonna create one more variable, and let's call this one DS, and this is our data store now. Get data store. Yeah, I forgot about this. Look, you have to refer to this data store service right here, and then the S is only referring to your data store. And what you want to do to create your own data store is that you want to refer to DSS, so to the service, and then get data store. And then you can enter the name of your data store right here. I'm going to call this one Double Fruit Course 1 Data Store 1. Okay. Now, you want to do DS get async. And then, as you can see, it requires a key. I'm going to be explaining the stuff around the keys later. There is a problem with understanding it because we haven't created the saving process yet. You need to understand how the saving process works in order to understand what this key right here is for. But for now, just copy what I'm doing right here. The S, get async. Get async is our, well, you can call it load, so loading function right here. So we are applying the loading function with the key of our player's user ID. Okay, keep that in mind. I'm gonna be referring to the key later. So what we're doing right here basically is that we are checking if there is any data to get for this key, for this specific key right here, for this unique key. And if there is any data, then we want to do retrieve data equals this. And else describes the different case, so the different outcome. In this context, it is that there is no data saved to that unique key. This would result retrieve nil. Now retrieve data to be data template. Now wait. Yeah, I have to do the same right here. There we go. Now we can actually leave this. We do not really need it. All we need is this. There we go. So delete retrieve data and then just refer to this table right here. So let me explain you what I've just done right here. Well, let me first of all explain the purpose of this data table right here. So this data table is going to hold every data of every person inside of the server now. Okay, at the beginning it is of course empty because there is no one at the beginning of game, and then someone joins and someone else joins and so on and so on. And let me explain you what this does, so why we have put this in front. So this expression right here, or let's actually work with this one, because this one is a little bit more abstract for you, but let's work with this one. As you can see, we have player name. Okay, this player is of course the player which has just joined. Player name is clear, so the player's name equals data template. You guys know that data template is this table right here. Now, how is this gonna look like inside of our data table right here? It is gonna be something like this. So so this is my username, and then the data table right here. So that's how it is gonna look like. Player name inside of those brackets ensures that the index, okay, so you guys call this index and you call this a value, and this is separated by this equals index value, and this is an index as well. We are indexing this into this table right here, and we say that this index equals this value, in this case the data template. Now the thing is, if there is no such index, then we are creating it. That is how it works. And if there is an index like this, then we are overwriting it with this value. All right, that's basically how things are gonna look like. So just to make you guys understand, so back then when I had to understand all of these, yeah, I really would have liked to have had someone who would have showed who would have showed me all of these things, because it is a little bit complex, a little bit abstract to understand all of this stuff, because it is pretty much just theory, okay? So there is no instance right here whatsoever. It is just numbers in your mind. You have to understand. But yeah. Now, and this is literally the same, with the only difference that the value right here is a table which we don't really know about, because it could be there, but it couldn't be there as well, because we have to load it. But yeah, that's basically how you load the data. Now, what we want to do as well, wait, let me add one more right here. Function print data, print. Let's actually try to define some functions right here. So let's try to define print data. So what we need in order to print someone's data is to know who this someone is, so who this person is. That is going to be the first argument. We need to know who the player is. And then we can just easily do data player.name. There we go. That's how you refer to the value of, so the data, I'm sorry, the data of your player. So let's try to define a change function. Of course, we need to know whose data we are changing, so the player, and then we need to know which value we are changing and to what we are changing it to. So we need these three arguments. Now we have to, right, if data player.name, which then we would like to change this to what? There we go. So what we're doing right here is that we are once again referring to the player's data, and then we are referring to the name of the value, which is our second argument. And we are basically asking whether this reference right here we are making is even existed. And this reference we are making is basically the reference to the value we would like to change. And we are just asking whether this value is existent. And if that is the case, then we are using this reference to the value we would like to change. And we tell the script that this index equals this value. So the same thing as I've told you up here. And the third argument, of course, is the value we would like to change things to. Okay. Now, last thing right here, last function is gonna be the save function. And yeah, this one is a one-liner. To be honest, we could just do the as. Nah, not really, because we need to check on something. There we go. That's it. So this is our save function. Let me explain this to you. So once this function is called, we are checking if the player has data. Okay, so whether there is any value to this index right here. And if there is any value to it, then we are referring to the data store up here. And then we are performing a set async. As you can see, this thing up here was called get async. And this one now is called set async. So basically sets the data, and this one gets the data. Now, as you can see, we have two arguments right here. The first one is the key, and the second one is the value we would like to save. Now, let me explain to you what this key is. So when it comes to a data store, you can really imagine this as some kind of wardrobe with a lock, okay? And let's say that the wardrobe is open at the beginning, it is empty. And then you start filling in some stuff. And then you would like to save your stuff inside of there by locking wardrobe's doors. Now you need an unique key to lock the wardrobe, and only you with the unique key is able to open up this wardrobe again, means to get the content inside of that wardrobe again. And that's basically the principle behind those keys. You need a unique key which is so associated with your data you're saving. Okay, you need this key to save and you need this key to load, and it is very important that it is unique. Otherwise, so let's just extend our example. Imagine two people have access to the wardrobe with the content inside, although the content inside of the wardrobe was only dedicated to one person. Okay, so to the real owner of the key. And what happens when the second person who has the same key now starts putting his stuff inside? It overwrites the data, let's say. Okay, and that's the reason why this key needs to be unique, and we cannot use something like hello world as a key, for example. All right, so to prevent people from having the same data, or from one person overwriting the data of another just because they had the same key. That's the reason why the key needs to be unique. And in this case, every player has its own user ID. That's the reason why user IDs are perfect for this purpose. And yeah, that's the reason why we use the user ID as a key. Now this is our save function, and the second argument is of course the thing we would like to save, which is our data inside of that table. Now we are going to apply the save function when the player is being removed. Now there is one thing actually I would like to do. Game bind to close function. I'm gonna be explaining this, guys, no worry. There we go. So what I've just done is that we are not only using player removing as the only occasion to save someone's stuff, we are using bind to close as well. Let me explain the difference. What bind to close does is that it notices when the server is about to shut down, and if that is the case, then we are doing the code down here. So this one is only limited to one player, and this one is limited to the whole server. Now let me explain to you why I'm using this. My experience is that when using player removing in Studio, in the context of data stores, then player removing does not really trigger for me. It only works in an actual Roblox game. So when actually playing in the Roblox program and not in Studio. That is the reason why I'm using bind to close, because bind to close works fine for me in Studio. Now what I've done right here is that I've added a check, and this check checks whether the current session is in Studio or not. In this case we have this not in front. If not, game get service run service is Studio, then. So if the current session is not in Studio, then this thing is supposed to save. This one is the exact opposite. If the current session is in Studio, then we are performing this. And what this is that we have I and PLR. I is the index, V is the value. In pairs game, players get children. So what happens is that we are referring to this players tab, and then we are getting every child inside. So childs are the things inside of this category right here, this players tab. And in this case, it is only my player right here, but when we would test this thing out with multiple players, then it would be a bunch of players right here. Okay, and we are looping through each player, and we are applying the save function to each player. All right, that's how things happen right here. Now, we are not done yet. We have to add a bindable. Was it event or function? I'm not sure. Called by another script. Yeah, it was bindable function, I'm pretty sure. There we go, data store. So we need this bindable function right here to make other scripts be able to give our data store script a task. As you can see, we have 3 functions right here. One is used within the script automatically. The other 2s aren't used anywhere. And we now have to script this. So script data store on invoke equals function. There we go. And now we can have a bunch of arguments right here. Arc. So if arc what equals change, then change arc player arc which arc what. Else if arc is print, then print data arc player. I'm gonna be explaining this in a bit. Just let me write all of the code so that you guys are fully able to understand what is going on right here. So, script parent data store invoke Let me actually play this and see if this even works, okay? So I haven't even tested out anything till yet. Let's see if this works. Because there's no point in me explaining something which doesn't even work, you know? As you can see, it did work. It did work. Very nice. Okay, Delphi is still none because we did not change it. But we could change it now if we want to. Wait, let me please quickly write this code and then I'm gonna explain. I promise. Ah. So let me call this val. There we go. Okay, let me actually play this and see what happens. Okay. So devil fruit is none. And now it is tool. Perfect. Now let me see if it saves. I hope that it saves. Let's play again. So if it has saved correctly, then after me eating this fruit, the first table should contain tool. Okay, it contains none. Didn't save for a reason, but we'll find out why. But what has worked is that we are now able to communicate to the data store script right here, and it fulfills each task perfectly. That is good. That is very good. And let me explain you how this works. So we have this bindable function right here. And this bindable function can be invoked, okay? You can imagine invoke as something like, you know, you just tell this bindable function what to do, okay? So you in this case, you're telling it to do something. Now you have to define what it is supposed to do. And for this case, we have these curly brackets right here, so the exact same thing as right here. All right. And within those curly brackets, we have a bunch of arguments. So, for example, what tells the bindable function what to do. In this case, print. In that case, change. In this case, print again. And we can add a bunch of other arguments. So player right here, play equals the player. Okay. In this context, in this case right here, play equals to play again. But we have another argument called which is the double fruit. Another argument called val, which stands for value, which is the double fruit's name. So it's the f variable right here. Yeah, what we're doing right here is that we are firing the first. So we're telling the bindable function to do the first task, which is to print the data store, and then the second task is to change the double fruit data to the double fruit's name right here. So to the tool's name, because we get the double fruit's name by the tool's name right here. And after that, we want to do the third task, which is to print it again. And what happens is that you can see a clear change. So from none to tool. Okay, that's basically the idea behind it. Now let's take a look at how these tasks are processed inside of the data store script. So we have this small passage right here, which is responsible for the communication. Script data store, which is this bindable function on invoke, which is an event which happens when you have invoked this bindable function, means you have told it what to do. So basically what we're doing right here. Okay. Now, if this happens, then we create a new function which contains arg as the only argument. And this arg is basically your table. So everything which is inside of here. Now we can easily do arg dot what equals change. So if the task is change, then we want to fire this function right here with the arguments which it has. So arg dot player, which is this thing, arg which is this thing, arg val, which is this thing. If the task is to print, then we just want to print. So we want to call that function print data on arg.player, so the player who has been passed within this argument. Yeah. This is basically how this works. Now we actually need to take a look at why this is not saving. So I'm gonna be adding a print right here to see if this even comes to this point. Okay, it does save. Let's actually print out the data it is saving. Internal server error. No. Okay, so that there was an error while using getAsync. That is funny. I don't know why, but now it works. So as you can see, the first table says tool, the second one says tool as well. Now to ultimately tell whether this works or not, let's change this tool's name to Magu. So to the magma fruit. So the first one should say tool, and the second one should say Magu. It says tool as well. But why? Why does it say tool? Why does it say tool? It isn't supposed to say tool. Print the F. Why does it say tool? 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 Why tool? It is called Magu. Why tool? Can someone tell why tool? So I'm gonna be doing some troubleshooting right here. I'll be back. Okay, this isn't even firing for some reason. Nah, this isn't even firing for some reason. I know why. I know why. I know why. Look. I found out why. Look, because of the space. Because of that space. So first table should say tool, and the second one should say Magu. Tool, Magu. There we go. Now when we stop, it didn't save. Oh my! It didn't save. It didn't save. It didn't save. I can tell it didn't save. It says Magu again. Didn't save again. You guys might ask, how do you know whether it has saved or not? Because this is missing right here. So what we do to really ensure that it saves is that we should save, so-called a save function, once a value has been changed. Let's actually do that. Because then we are really safe about things. Tool, saving data, Magu. There we go. Stop. And let me actually print the data once it has been retrieved. So print. There we go. Magu. There we go. There we go, finally. And let me remove some stuff right here. So let me remove this, because I don't really want to see that has been saved. Next thing I would like to remove is that. So once a player leaves, I would like to set the index to nil of that player. So instead of that folder, just to save some space. We don't really need to do this on bind to close, because bind to close only applies to Roblox Studio sessions, while this one applies to real game sessions. So do this to, you know, just remove the data from the player's data from the data table, so that it just does not take up any unnecessary space. So do that. So it still says Magu. Let's make the final test by calling this Nika. Let's see what happens. So, Magu, Nika, 8, Magu, Nika. Stop. Data store request was added to queue if request fails. Oh, come on. And Nika. It has been saved, guys. It has been saved. There we go, guys. Whew. Finally, yeah. Thanks for watching all of those, I think, 7 episodes. You have 3 more to go with the bonus content. Yeah, guys, I hope that this course was helpful to you, and that you guys have understood how to create a dollar-free system by yourself, so that you guys know all about all of those necessary components right here. No. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Discord server you should be inside of after you have bought the course. Yeah, with that being said, guys, thanks for watching. See ya.